Northwestern football in 2026 should be very interesting, as they are one of the most interesting middle tier teams in the Big Ten because the Wildcats aren't rebuilding their 7-6 bowl winning 2025 season. They're trying to raise the ceiling even more. David Braun brought in Chip Kelly to run the offense, adding former Michigan State quarterback Aiden Childs, and retained key other players like Caleb Komolafi, Griffin Wilde, and still has a defense that allowed less than 20 points per game last season. They were fifth in the Big Ten in defensive points allowed per game. They face five AP top 25 teams, and here on the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, we give respect to the Northwestern Wildcats. Not a lot of other people do. I've seen predictions out there for Northwestern to go 3-9, 4-8. Just gonna let you know right now, I am not one of those people that thinks they're gonna go 3-9 or 4-8. I think that this could be a pretty good year for Northwestern. They have a schedule that's not very favorable, but we'll get into that as we go. Zach, as you look at this Northwestern team and what they have coming up in 2026, what are some of the main storylines and things like that you're going to be thinking about going into the season?
Well, first off, before I get into storylines, can we just give major props to college football with Sam, who kind of turned us on to the potential of Northwestern? Because he came out firing, saying 8-4 in an upset over Penn State. He is that guy. So I feel like we got to give our man Sam props for that.
For sure.
So friend of the program. I honestly think I think one of the biggest storylines. Well, sorry, there's two. One is program defining, and the other is related to this season. The biggest storyline is the opening of Ryan Field, and that October 2nd date with Penn State. I think win or lose could be just program defining in terms of where this program wants to go and what it wants to be from now moving forward in this new era. We talked about it on previous episodes. The way that Northwestern is starting to invest in their football program and in their athletic department makes it seem like they see a future more similar to Indiana than, say, Purdue. No offense to the Purdue athletic director, who's a bit misguided. So that's one storyline. I think the second, it's more related to this season. Aiden Childs and Chip Kelly, match made in heaven or crash out potential?
There's a lot of thoughts there on that. I mean, Aiden Childs, he was good at Oregon State. A lot of hype coming in for him to start his first season at Michigan State. Neither season went all that great, and depending on what storyline you want to hear, he was kind of benched at the end of his Michigan State tenure. Jonathan Smith gets fired, and then Chip Kelly wins a national championship. He goes off to the NFL. Does not go well for him. He is fired before the season even ends, but these are two guys who have both had success, in college football, and Aiden Childs at Oregon State when he kind of shared time there, and then Chip Kelly at Ohio State, two very different programs, but both OSU. So I don't know, maybe if Northwestern just changes their acronym to OSU or something like that, that would get him there. But I also think that there's a pretty good storyline here of just David Braun and his coaching acumen and his potential and everything else. I don't think he gets enough credit for his ability to coach. When he first came into Northwestern, everybody thought that team was going to win maybe one game that season. He goes on to win, I believe it was 8 football games, including a bowl game that year. Braun thinks this program has ambitions that are pretty high and higher than most people expect for him. And based on, them wanting to win before when they had Pat Fitzgerald and they had 3 seasons of 10 plus wins, really not too long before he moved on after everything that happened there. This Northwestern program does want to win. I don't think they're going to win a national championship anytime soon, but they are definitely not satisfied with being a bottom of the Big Ten type of team.
Right. You see that in the investment, the alignment from athletic director to the head coach to the coordinators. Like you're paying money to go get Chip Kelly. I know people will say, "Well, Chip Kelly, did you see what happened to him in the NFL?" Yes, and my counter would be, "Did you see what he did at Ohio State as the offensive coordinator?"
He also did a pretty good job at UCLA as the head coach with the offense. I mean, I know not everybody was satisfied with him there at UCLA. It wasn't
Hmm.
the best thing ever, but he did have some pretty good seasons that UCLA would love to have right now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, let's go over to the offense here, Zach. As we look at the offense, obviously Aiden Childs at quarterback, like we talked about. The running back room is pretty loaded. Caleb Komolafi, Joseph Hyman is there as well. Gavin Sawchuk is another one that I think is a legitimate back. He had 486 yards and 8 touchdowns at Florida State last season. He's a bit of an underrated transfer. And then, of course, you got Griffin Wilde as the star wide receiver and Hayden Elegon. He came on at the end of last season, and you've got a few other guys there. And tight end, Luke Dinicky is somebody that has been getting some praise in fall camp this offseason. And then the offensive line, David Braun continues to go out and try to put that together. The big offseason topic was Azomo Oratakai, I think is how you pronounce it, but it's probably wrong. Sorry. He moves from center to left guard. You have Jackson Caracello most likely starting there at center. This is going to be very interesting to try and figure out what this Northwestern offense is going to be. I don't think it's the most high-powered offense in the Big Ten, but I do think it's one of the ones with some more underrated pieces that people are not aware of.
Yeah, I think, and if we're talking best position groups, that running back group is, I think, very underrated in the Big Ten. Komolafe averaged pretty darn close to 5 yards a carry. Hyman high 4 yards per carry. Like these guys are good backs. And Sawchuk, you mentioned 486 yards. He also had 7 starts at Florida State. So like they have a very deep running back room. And you combine that with a quarterback who can run the ball. You combine that with receivers who Penn State knows, like they got burned by Wilde over and over and over again. Jim Knowles should probably figure that out while he's at Tennessee. But you've got a really good, I think, a really good foundation in that running back room to at very least take the air out of the ball, control the game, and have opportunities to win games.
I'm right there with you. I'm most confident in this running back room. Komolafe is huge, but then you also have Sawchuk and Hyman. Hyman has some big play, kind of breakout, well, not breakout, but breakaway potential with his running ability. So I feel really good about the running back room. The position group I'm actually least confident on with the offense, and this is going to sound kind of weird because he was one of our main talking points at the beginning. It's the quarterback position with Aiden Childs, and that just kind of shows to me where the ceiling and the floor is with this entire thing. Aiden Childs could be a great quarterback for you this year, and he could help you win a lot of games. He could also throw 3 or 4 picks in a couple games this season and really hurt you in that way. So I think with hopefully a better offensive line than they had at Michigan State last year, with some more protection, we could really see him flourish and be the quarterback that we didn't always get to see last year because of that offensive line. But as I look at everything else, you have Griffin Wilde, Caleb Komolafe, Luke Dinicky, Azomo, not even gonna try his last name again, and the Oklahoma State transfer at left tackle. Why am I blanking on his name right now? Seagrin. I think you have a pretty good setup here. Everywhere else, the biggest question mark I have is indeed at quarterback.
I I'm with you. I do have questions about the offensive line. Like you lose 4 starters, you lose a lot of continuity. You lose Tiernan, the left tackle from a year ago. Um, I just, but I'm with you. I think it's that combo of quarterback, offensive line. I do think the offensive line will be better than he had the past couple years at Michigan State. Part of that was no offense to the Spartan fans listening and watching. Your offensive line was a dumpster fire. I will say though, he gets Chip Kelly as his offensive coordinator. This is Aiden Childs. He gets Jerry Neuheisel as his quarterbacks coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, will competent coaching raise the ceiling, or at least raise the floor for Aiden Childs?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say he had bad coaching at Michigan State because Jonathan Smith did do a good job, but it just seemed like Jonathan Smith was never really able to, get ahead of himself and actually be the coach that he was at Oregon State. So you can definitely question the coaching there. I do think it's going to matter a lot, and we'll see how it goes. When you go to the other side of the ball with the defense, like I talked about, the defense does return, a pretty good unit who allowed less than 20 points per game last year. Tim McGargle, he is clearly a defense coordinator that is working in the Big Ten right now. He was top 25 nationally in defense, and I think that you have a number of positions here that you can feel confident in, but also a number that you kind of lost some players and you're thinking to yourself, what do we do with this spot? So, Zach, let's get the most confident position in that you have for defense.
I think it's that defensive backfield. You get Robert Fitzgerald back, really good player. Josh Fussell comes back. It's a veteran unit. Ore Adeye is a senior. He had 5 starts a year ago. Damon Walters, a junior. He's going to take that one of the other safety spots. It seems like he was out for the year last year for most of the season, so he comes back. David Braun has come out and said that he thinks that it's the best the back half has looked in years. So David Braun is saying it, and he's a defensive guy. Just saying.
Yeah, he knows his stuff for sure. And don't forget, they also added a couple more transfers to that corner room as well. So it's not like they're relying entirely on freshmen behind Josh Fussell. So I'm with you on the secondary. I like what they have back there, and I think it could be a really good unit for them. Unfortunately, the part that I'm least confident in does happen to be the defensive line. I mean, this is a pretty easy decision if you ask me. You're replacing Antosaka, Aiden Hubbard, and several other veteran contributors. Michael Kilbane is back, and he is a good player. So I'm excited for him to be back, but you're also asking a bunch of young players and transfers to maintain a defense that finished top 5 in the conference in scoring. That's the biggest defensive question mark, if you ask me.
Yeah, I am encouraged that all 4 projected starters are seniors. And so at least you have grown men playing that position. Brendan Flakes did start 13 games a year ago at defensive tackle. So he is back. He's a returning starter. Migo Jackson has some playing experience from a year ago. But yeah, it is not going to be, at least projected, not going to be as explosive of a pass rush without Antosaka and Aiden Hubbard. I think that's going to be a tough loss for them to manage. It'll be interesting if some of those younger guys step up, though, and they are able to get some sort of rotation like they had a year ago.
All right, let's move on over to the schedule, Zach, as we look at ceiling and floor. For the record, Northwestern, of course, opens with South Dakota State, and then they get their bye week 2. And this is one of the things that makes this Northwestern schedule so very difficult to me. Nobody in the country is giving them credit for how tough their schedule is, but if you just look at it and don't do the whole numbers game that a lot of people want to do, you will see that this is one of the most difficult schedules in the country. You have the bye, then you have Colorado, at Indiana, Penn State, Ball State, at Michigan State, Rutgers, at Oregon, Iowa, at Ohio State, at Minnesota. That's in back-to-back weeks, and then you finish it off with home against Illinois. And Zach, the thing that not a lot of people don't realize about the schedule is you don't have a West Coast team coming over to you. Sometimes that's an advantage for some of these teams that are in the Eastern time zone, or close to the Eastern time zone over there with the Central time zone. But you kind of have that advantage when you bring a UCLA to you, or a Washington, or a USC, somebody like that. The only West Coast team you have on the schedule here is Oregon, and you got to be the one traveling out to Oregon. So there's a lot of things about the schedule that people are not giving credit for, and it's one of the reasons why I think when I give my record here, Northwestern fans aren't going to be too happy, and honestly, I'm not going to be too happy either, because I would love to be with College Football with Sam and say this team is going to be 8-4, but with this schedule, it's really hard to think that way.
Yeah, that stretch between October 31st and November 14th, at Oregon, Iowa, at Ohio State. My goodness, that's for a team like Northwestern and their roster, that is just brutal. And that's not to say that we don't think that Northwestern could get a team like Iowa. Like I think they can, but you're sandwiching Iowa in between road trips to Oregon and Ohio State. And it's similar with Minnesota. Like Minnesota, I think is gettable for Northwestern, but then to go on the road after you play Ohio State,
Yeah.
Iowa, and at Oregon back to back to back, it's a tough ask for anybody. And while I do think Northwestern has improved the roster over the past couple years, they're not at the level yet where they can handle, I think, that type of rigors, those type of rigors on their schedule.
Yeah, when I look at the floor of this schedule, I think it's 4-8. I think you're going to get the win against South Dakota State. I'm almost positive, but that is a tougher FCS program. So, and it is the opening game of the season. I'm not worried about them losing that one, but I would say it's possible they could. Ball State is, obviously going to be a game they should win as well. Colorado, you should be. I am not a believer in Deion Sanders at all, and every video I see online of that program and everything just makes me think it's it's I don't want to be too mean, but I don't think it's a serious program right now in college football, and so Northwestern is more of a serious program to me, and so they should win that one, especially with it being at home. And it's really important that you start 2-0 because then you have at Indiana and then Penn State. Those are two tougher games. I could see them getting South Dakota State, Colorado, Ball State, and then like maybe Rutgers, and that kind of being it, just with how much of this schedule is a gauntlet, and you really don't have a break anywhere in there to kind of take a breather or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 3-9 or 4-8 is the floor as well. I agree with you. Like I think especially with the way the schedule is set up, it makes it very challenging to get a third and a fourth win because like assuming you go 2-0, and I don't think that's an assumption, but I agree with you. I would favor them certainly against South Dakota State, certainly against Colorado, but it's not, they're not gimmies either. And then you have to, like, you get Indiana and Penn State back to back. You get Penn State on a short week too. Like you play at Indiana, which might be the best team in the country, and then you have to come back. There's all the excitement, all the pomp and circumstance with Penn State on a Friday. Ball State, like you should get Ball State. So that's hopefully 3 wins. But like I don't think Michigan State's going to be a cakewalk, even though I don't think their roster. I think they're probably not as good of a roster right now as Northwestern, possibly. Like I think Rutgers, they should beat Rutgers, but again, like it's not like Rutgers doesn't have studs. Like you have two players that are high in the CBS Sports Top 150, and Antoine Raymond and KJ Duff. They're one player going off away from losing that game. And so and then that Oregon, Iowa, Ohio State stretch, it's just brutal.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm gonna go ceiling wise here, I'm actually gonna go 8-4 as the ceiling. And I was kind of teetering on 8-4 and 7-5, but you know what? I'm gonna go with my guy, college football with Sam, and not call him crazy. So I'll go with the ceiling is 8-4 here. I do see a world where they lose to Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, and they get the rest of them. Do I think it's super likely? No, not necessarily. I don't think Iowa at home is going to be particularly easy, especially when it's sandwiched in that game between or in between the games of at Oregon and at Ohio State. I think going at Minnesota right after going at Ohio State is difficult. And I think at Michigan State could be a little bit more difficult than people give him credit for, too. But I will say I respect what David Braun is doing. I respect some of the star players they have this season, so I'm going to give him an 8-4 ceiling.
Yeah. I'm with you. I've got 8-4 as well. I don't think the Penn State game is insurmountable. And I think with the emotion, that's a winnable game for them. In fact, I'm pretty sure I put that in my bold predictions that Northwestern's going to beat Penn State.
Yes. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I think I could see a world where they lose to Indiana. I think Oregon and Ohio State, and I don't think they have the depth where they can avoid a loss to some of the other teams that I think they probably can compete with.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think Iowa, like if they beat Iowa, I think they probably lose to Minnesota. If they lose to Minnesota, or if they beat Minnesota, I think they probably lose to Iowa. Or if they beat Iowa and Minnesota, I think they lose to Illinois. Like I don't think they have the depth to like withstand that onslaught, especially at the end of the season. So I have 8-4 as the ceiling, even with a really big upset potentially in there. But I think 8-4 is probably the best you can do with this schedule because it is a brutal schedule.
I finished my Big Ten preseason prediction earlier today.
Oh,
So
great, good for you. I do not have it yet. I'm behind.
you're not behind because we're not doing it until Sunday.
Oh,
My record prediction for Northwestern is 6-6, and I hate that, but it's what I did.
but they're bowling.
And they are bowling, but this team should not be 6-6. This is a better than a 6-6 team. This should be a 7-5 or 8-4 team.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit was it 23 that Rutgers had like the greatest 7-6 season that I think in their history.
Yep.
Like it was more impressive than the 2006 year, in my opinion, because how brutal the schedule is.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll get to the end of this season, and I think we will say I think 6-6 or 7-5. I'm gonna be bold. Again, I haven't done my predictions yet. I'm gonna go 7-5. And I think we're gonna say that this is one of the greatest coaching jobs that we've seen in Northwestern history.
All right, there we go. You heard it here first. The Northwestern prediction: me 6-6, Zach 7-5. Should be a fun season for the Northwestern Wildcats. Go ahead and follow us along this season as we talk them and everybody else in the Big Ten Sunday night recaps of the entire week, talking all things college football, but mainly Big Ten football, and then of course previewing all the Big Ten football games on Tuesday. Both of those are at 9 p.m. Eastern time, live on YouTube, or you can catch them the next morning on podcast. Thanks so much for listening to this season preview of Northwestern on the Big Ten Huddle. Oh, I did forget. I need to mention I forgot to do this, and when I forget, it's not good. On FanDuel, Northwestern's win total is at just had it pulled up, is at 5.5 wins. They are actually favored to go under that, and Zach and I just both gave you 6-6 and 7-5 in their favor to go under. So we are not going with what others are thinking with Northwestern. We'll see how it goes for us. All right, everybody, thanks for listening and watching. Have a good one. See you next time.